All right. How's everyone doing today? So, just gonna do a little live here. Hopefully keep it between I don't know, 15 and 20 minutes. I don't want to go on for too long. Um, Kind of an old topic. So, what I want to get into here is kind of what's going on with leadership around the world and what's coming out of the media and sort of what to expect around that. So, as we've seen, the headscarf lady in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, who's one of the kind of in the Trump derangement years, she was like the virtue signaler in chief. She was one of the people who helped mainstream corporate media entertainment complex. She helped them to create this marriage between feminism and Islam. So for years and years, feminists had the common sense that, in the Middle East, and even, a good amount of Muslims living in the West, they had the common sense to know that Islam is very antagonistic to women and it's on a spectrum. So, the worst it gets is like Saudi Arabia, the hills of Afghanistan, the backwaters of Indonesia. These are places where like women can be punished or even executed, for getting raped, especially Saudi Arabia. So feminists knew that they had the common sense to know that, Islam is not the friend of women. You get to places like Turkey, they're a lot more down to earth. They're like the Catholics of the Islamic world, where they don't get all bent out of shape about religion. They know it's a power, kind of like a power institution, something to, you know, hypnotize people and maintain power. But anyway, this former prime minister of New Zealand helped to basically like bamboozle the left and create this marriage of Islam and feminism. Now, like I'm always saying, I'm not just bagging on the left and talking up the right. The right's totally ridiculous, but it's very obvious the right is ridiculous. And for many, it's difficult to comprehend that the left is also ridiculous. So anyway, she was a very instrumental media personality. So television personality. So she recently resigned. She resigned this past week, and it was almost unthinkable in some ways because she's a darling of communist China. You can see her body language when there's like these like G20, G7, G8 summits, and it's kind of like with Justin Trudeau. Like Xi Jinping seems to be kind of patronizing them and giving them instruction. So she was the darling of the Chinese Communist Party. She was the darling of the drug pushers, the drug makers, because she was advocating for New Zealand, for her country, to implement every possible type of lockdown and health passport and attempt to enforce as many penalties as possible for people who didn't want to get the needle craft. So she seemed to be a darling of this agenda and all of the financial and commercial interests that were pushing it. So it didn't seem like she was going anywhere. Well, she for a while now has looked like she's aged rapidly. She looks stressed out, very tired. And she was forced to resign. I mean, when you watch her, she's not, there's quite a bit she's not saying. So I think she was forced to resign. Why that is, we're going to get into a little bit. But I think something similar might be coming with Trudeau in Canada because he's totally flip-flopped. He was freezing bank accounts of people who were participating in the trucker convoy that was going to Ottawa, the capital of Canada. He is not a friend of freedom. And there's been a lot of pushback in Canada, and now he's talking about how freedom and freedom of speech are in jeopardy and they need to be protected after everything he did. So he doesn't seem to be doing well, and so Mini Castro, as many like to call him, and then Mr. Dementia Joe Biden. It's like he could blow up at any minute. There's this whole thing with the classified material. So these former officials, these former presidents, vice presidents, I think even, members of Congress, they are privileged with being able to keep classified documents and hard drives and, so on and so forth, even when they've left office. Now, what they are required by law to do is they have to, whether it's in their library, especially the presidents, whether it's in their presidential library or it's within their home or their office spaces, they have to create a facility that meets certain security standards so that they can keep these materials and discuss them within them. So basically, it's like reinforcing the doors, walls, even floors and ceilings, and having some, anti-bugging countermeasures, different technologies that do that. So there are these standards that all facilities that store classified information have to adhere to. And the more sensitive it gets, the higher the standards are. So what's come out with Mr. Biden is that he was storing classified materials that went all the way back into the Obama administration when he was vice president. He was storing those in his garage, which is not, a garage is not what they call a SCIF. SCIF is sensitive classified information facility. So there's actually a type of security clearance that's above top secret. It's called SCI, sensitive compartmentalized information. So his garage is not a SCIF, and he went to downplay this by saying, well, it was locked up with my Corvette. It's not like they were out on the street. So, he's laughing this off. He's under investigation by the FBI. This could go somewhere. I'm not going to hold my breath about it because Hillary Clinton was doing this, and then she destroyed a bunch of materials that were basically being, what do they call that? Subpoenaed by an investigation in Benghazi, and she just, said, "Oh, I had a fire in my house," and in the middle of the fire, these computer hard drives mysteriously drowned in buckets of water. So, if you are a government employee, if you're a service member in the military, you can get your ass nailed to the floorboards for not handling classified information properly and taking them out of the facilities that they're supposed to be housed in. But, if you're a president, vice president, or former president, vice president, member of Congress, you can do pretty much anything with this stuff. You could drive in a convertible and just throw it out the window and you can laugh it off and be like, well, it wasn't that sensitive. So yeah, this could come to something with him. I'm not sure because it's a total double standard. And the funny thing is, this all came to light after they were trying to go after Donald Trump for having classified materials in his presidential library and in some of his office spaces. And it's like, well, yeah, every president's doing that. They're all looking at this stuff. They all make money as consultants. So they're always reviewing things from their administration so they can give advice. So they're all doing this. So that's an ongoing situation. There's all these, he's in all these debacles, covering up for his son, Hunter, and it's a mess. And even though, he was the one who was actually pulling quid pro quos with Ukrainian officials and bribing people over there, to make money from companies that his son was a corporate officer with. There's so many scandals around him. I don't know what's going to happen. They could all be made to go away, or what could happen, and I think this is like the Jacinda Ardern story, and I think if Trudeau goes down, it's going to be similar. I think we could have a scandal served up to us, basically spoon-fed to us, like they always are. All these spoon-fed whistleblowings, even like Edward Snowden. I think it's an act. I think it's a media act. I think that was information that, Deep State was willing to part with in order to throw the attention off something else. So, yeah, I think with these politicians going down, it's a case of this. Now, a lot of people are beating the drum, and they're like, yeah, the Deep State's going down, Illuminati's going down, and Trump's gonna get sworn in any day now, or Ron DeSantis, or whatever the fuck. That's obviously not going to happen. Freedom is definitely on the rise, because next year, 2024, America's having its Pluto return. That's a big deal. So based on the position of Pluto, we're in 1775 right now, the year before the revolution kicked off. And then next year, it goes to where it was July 4th, 1776. So freedom is on the rise. Next year, Jupiter will go to Aries. That's a big deal. So a lot of big things are happening here. We're going to continue to get more breathing room and more freedom. We've done a lot. We've gained a lot already just by waiting out these bastards. We're going to have to keep doing that. So the whole point in this video is that, if you start thinking that, the fall of the Deep State's happening right now, that's too good to be true. And if you're thinking that idea is too good to be true, you're right. We've got the last push here through the 2020s of this corporate communist, medical tyranny thing. They're going to push, I think, sometime in 2024, they're going to try to, roll out the pandemic kind of cooties emergencies again. They will not be as powerful or as convincing as they were, 2020, 2021, 2022. But they're going to try it again, especially with K2 going to Virgo. Because at the end of this year, 2023, Rahu and K2 are going to change signs. K2 and Virgo. Virgo, health, healing, diseases, medicine, poisons, the whole bit. Contagions. But having an eclipse there with K2, it's like this whole thing. Yeah, it's like there'll be some losses from it, but it's ultimately the power is going to be taken away. So that's encouraging. So yeah, don't fall for a ready-made sort of spoon-fed, reform, disclosure, whistleblow. Not going to be that easy. And it's interesting because I've been thinking about this with mid-February. So this is sidereal astrology, visible sky. Sun goes to Aquarius, where Saturn just transited to. So from about mid-February until about the 1st of March, Sun and Saturn are going to be within 10 degrees of each other. They're going to be conjunct. And Aquarius, especially for America, this is third house of media, mass communications. Now on February 20th, there's going to be a new moon, so a conjunction of Sun and Moon at 7 degrees of Aquarius. And sidereal, that's America's natal moon, which is in the house of media, which is in Aquarius, freedom, justice, we are the people, all that stuff. But also hive minds, so you got to watch that. And, when that new moon is happening conjunct with America's natal moon, Saturn will be at 4 degrees Aquarius. So Saturn's going to be involved. It's going to be combust and involved with this new moon. It's going to be a big part of it. So at that time, Saturn being at the lower degree, the sun wants to be the ruler, but Saturn is like the government minister and the enforcer of the law. And the sun's also the ego. So Saturn's going to be restraining the ego of the ruling powers in this world. And that is encouraging, but what we have to do here is use discernment and watch out for ready-made, spoon-fed, pre-mixed scandals and revelations and whistleblowers. And, K2 is going to be looking at that whole thing with a fifth aspect. So there's going to be like some kind of mindlessness to it, where people they're not looking at what they're seeing. They're just taking it at face value and running with it. So this is something we have to watch for. So in media, so another thing with Sun Saturn conjunct, it deals with duty. It deals with the persona and the ego having desires to do its duty, because Saturn is all about duty and responsibility. And duty and responsibility to the people, Aquarius, and to express that in mass media, third house. And this is true whether you're looking at sidereal or tropical. So this is very interesting. So this is happening. These people are falling apart, but they want us to just go back to sleep if they remove a few heads of state or heads of government, prime ministers, presidents, all that. There are dozens of people ready to take their place. So, don't get too excited if these people start, resigning or being removed. So we're talking mini Castro, Trudeau, or, or grandpa, demented grandpa Biden. Stay patient, keep waiting, especially people who, when we had all these mandates take place, if you didn't get the needle craft and you waited it out, just keep waiting like you did then, because it's not going to be that easy. We're not going to have this all sewn up before America's Pluto return. And that's July 16th, 2024. That's like American Revolution 2.0. It's Declaration of Independence 2.0, July 16th, 2024. So we're not going to have the deep state Illuminati specter, whatever you want to call them. We're not going to have them all sewn up and defeated before next summer. It's going to take some more years. We're looking in the early 2030s, this whole medical tyranny, corporate communism. It's going to take some years to come down because they're in their last push. But an encouraging thing too is that it's going to be a patchwork quilt of a world until the early 2030s. So depending on where you live, you're going to be dealing with that whole push, or you're going to be outside it and watching it happen. It's going to depend on not just what country you live in, but what region of what country, because different regions of pretty much all countries are going to start doing their own thing, if their governments are still involved in trying to create cooties hysteria. And then if they're involved with hysteria of other things they might attempt. So they might attempt, but I don't think very successfully, to escalate the whole Ukraine war. And then there's the whole possibility of the fake alien invasion that deep state seems to be preparing. And to what degree of readiness or success, I don't know. But when you have these people in Congress asking DOD and CIA officials if there are any legal penalties that they can use against people talking about UFOs who are not government employees. So, I think that's like the ultimate kind of false flag deception, is trying to declare war on ET so they can build new weapons and technology, and create a new bubble. It's like that Paul Krugman, who I made a video about last year, back in 2009, after the economy had, taken a pretty severe dump. They said, "How do we get out of this?" And he said, "Well, if there was a threat from beyond this world and we could build all kinds of new weapons and technology, then our economic problems would be solved." And then he went on to say, "And if it turns out to be untrue," oh, see, now my light's working. Damn, that's obnoxious. Don't know why I didn't want to turn on. So yeah, but he said, if the whole thing turns out to be untrue, then oh well, we got a new economy and our financial problems are fixed, or at least the can's kicked down the road. So yeah, definitely something to take into consideration here. So yeah, it's not over. We've won, I think, this whole situation in the world. The people have won. These deep staters, not just the people we see, but the people we don't see, who are really pulling the strings. They're defeated already. They're very scared. They're very scared of us. But we have a lot of mopping up to do. We haven't sort of fought the last mental, spiritual battle. And like I'm always saying, even though these astrological cycles of American Civil War, World War II, American Revolution, even though they're reoccurring and making these returns basically on top of one another, I'm not seeing hot wars. I'm not seeing bullet and bomb widespread wars, but I am seeing more of these mental and spiritual wars that we've been fighting for thousands of years, but especially since March 2020. It's gonna be more of that. They might get more intense, but yeah, these deep staters are failing. They're falling to their own need, their own addictive personalities, which need instant gratification all the time, and their own impatience. So, and addictive personalities, they definitely are. Addictive personalities, they can't wait. They can't play the long game. They have to have everything right now. So, and that's good for us. So yeah, and it's interesting. I've been thinking about this with this coming new moon on February 20th, with Saturn being in Aquarius, and then the sun, catching up and conjuncting it. I've been thinking about this, and then my friend and teacher, Michael Denny, who owns and runs the thunderwizard.com channel. I'm not sure if he looked at the astrology, but intuitively he was talking about this. He's like, yeah, don't fall for it. Right as I was thinking about this whole Sun Saturn thing with that new moon, he made that video. So I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. A lot of the time he doesn't look at the transits, but his intuition is just that good. So yeah, the video has kind of inspired me to do this today. Yeah, so a little bit of rambling for you, a little food for thought. I'm gonna sign off, and I'll be around. Have a good one.